possibly one of the hottest topics in terms of debate that we visit as a station and as a show. So I don't know how you could have missed those. We spend far more time talking about those than we do about Hugh Edwards, I can tell you that much. Anyway, each to their own, as it were. This comes from Daniel in Epsom on Andy Burnham. Dan, what have you got for us? Hi.
All right, Ian, how are you, mate?
I'm good. Yeah, fine, thanks. Far away.
I'm just sort of, there's a sense of foreboding, I think, with Burnham coming in. I look at what his current situation is. So he's got the same backbenchers that Starmer had, who basically won't let him save any money on welfare or benefits, because don't forget, everything that Labour do is ideological. They do not make the best decisions for Britain because they only make ideological decisions, okay? So their backbenchers, everybody knows, right, with eyes, if everyone knows that you need to cut welfare massively, okay? Welfare and benefits need to be cut massively, but he won't be allowed, which means he hasn't got any money.
Yeah.
He won't get rid of net zero because of the millibands of this world. Did you know that Norway have a sovereign wealth fund?
Yes, they do.
£2 trillion are in that account, and it's primarily all from oil and gas.
It's all right, isn't it?
whilst on the other foot, we owe £3 trillion currently at the moment, nearly.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that are just common sense. So yes, we should open up lots more gas and oil fields. We should be doing that. I think if you were in charge of this country, you'd stop illegal immigration, you'd cut legal migration down to low numbers. And I personally think we should deport like 10 million people. If you're foreign born, you've got a social house and you don't really contribute, I'd get you gone. Because I think it's fair that British children and British people get British social housing first. And to me, that seems, it doesn't seem controversial. It just seems, why would we give loads of our own social housing to people that shouldn't even be here and or don't contribute?
It's very hard. I can never understand why anybody, like on the left, obviously, mostly, would have an argument against that. In fact, the only argument I think that they could possibly offer would be it would be more expensive and time-consuming to try and do that than to leave people where they are. I'm not defending that argument, but that's the only one I can imagine.
Yeah, but ideologically, you see, nothing that they do stacks up. I personally would like to see my children's future and them to be able to start a family and get a home, okay?
Yeah.
I would like to see that. And I think that the 10 million people that were foreign-born who maybe husband does a social care job, wife doesn't work, they've got 6 kids, they're using the NHS, education, they've got to go. If you're not a net contributor,
where would you send them? I mean, if you took an archetypal story, where would you send the kids who live here?
Home. I'd send them home.
Even though they're in school here and their life is here.
Yeah, but they come here for a better life at the detriment of mine. We've currently got 73 million people trying to use an infrastructure fit for about 50 million people.
No, I get all of that. I'm trying to work out, Dan, because I think most people understand exactly where you're coming from. But if you were to try and put that into practice, if somebody was, I don't know, they came from Poland, for example, and they came 30 years ago, life was good, and then it wasn't so good, so they, ended up in jobs that aren't brilliant. They are entitled to all the benefits anybody else is because they were here as part of that original agreement with the EU and the like. What do you do with those people?
I think you have to have a system. I think you have to take a step back and look over however long they've been here, what contribution they've made.
Yep.
If it's clear in a lot of cases that they haven't really made any contribution, then I'm quite harsh like that. It's a bit like the left as well.
I don't think it's harsh. I don't think it's harsh to say to somebody, look, we've crunched the numbers, mate. You've been here 20 years. You've literally contributed either nothing at all or very little. And we have given you an education system, a health system and a home, as well as top-up benefits to supplement your family's existence. I don't think to come along as a government and say that's not sustainable. I don't think that's a bad thing or a right-wing thing.
No, but I mean, it's a bit like they're not thinking about British children's futures. I mean, I've got 3 children, and I am. It's a bit like allowing men to keep coming in from the third world that are endangering my children, ruining their future. You're driving around, and the whole place is like decline and degradation. You know, it's unrecognisable to the country I grew up in.
Dan, on that point, we hit the clock. Always thorough stuff from Daniel in Epsom. I would like to hear, genuinely, an argument against certainly the principle of what he just suggested. 0344 499 1000. And can Andy Burnham rebuild that special relationship? Let's get the latest news now at 2 o'clock.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 0344 499 1000. Loads to get through here. It's been a busy week, and it's going to be a busy summer, really, because there's so much going. Normally, summer's your silly season, and you sort of scratch around for different kinds of stories. But we will have a new Prime Minister come July 17th, and that's going to provide all manner of material, including this, because we now know that Andy Burnham is right there, right now, working out what number 10's going to look like. But serious questions are being asked elsewhere about what kind of leader he's likely to make on the world stage, particularly with the United States. Yesterday, Donald Trump made his initial opinions on Burnham known, and it wasn't pretty. Can our next PM rebuild that special relationship? We'll continue to take your calls on that. Also this afternoon, a leaked government report has revealed that more than 60,000 migrants have no right to be in Britain, with over 50,000 illegal immigrants and foreign criminals having simply vanished after absconding, including 1,200 known offenders, in numbers that now exceed the entire asylum decision backlog. This is horrific, OK? Doesn't matter whether you're left wing or right wing. This is all over the flipping place. And as Britain breaks its record for the highest June overnight temperatures, homeowners are simultaneously being ordered by one council planning officers to tear out their air conditioning units under net zero building regulations that classify cooling your own home as a last resort. Buy a fan first. It's the 21st century. Why are these people determined to fire us back to the Stone Age? More on that as well. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. Amanda says special relationship can only be revived if Burnham listens to Trump. Drill, baby, drill. Will he listen? As I was saying before, there's sort of house points on the left for deliberately not listening to Trump. And the Labour backbenchers will love that. And I don't mean kind of just disagreeing with him and saying, no, I've got a better idea, but being unequivocally anti-Trump is a position that the Labour backbenchers really love, as if that somehow makes you a better or a kinder person, because Trump's a bit unconventional. They like that. Now, will Burnham play to that gallery, or will he go down the Blair route, which was very much about as solid a relationship that you could get? Perhaps only Thatcher would have exceeded Blair in that respect. Let's get a word on all the big stories of the day. Annunziata Rees-Mogg joins us, head of comms at Popular Conservatism. Good afternoon to you. Have you got aircon? I've got to ask you this, Annunziata, to start with.
No, I don't have aircon, but I am lucky to live in an old house when they built them quite well and they stay quite cool.
Yeah, you see, that helps, doesn't it? Although mine's quite old, but at the moment is roaringly hot. So I don't know what they did to yours they didn't do to mine.
I'm also in the middle of the countryside, so I don't have all the built-up heat of London.
Well, that's very true. That does help. It's kind of interesting. We were talking a second ago about how Camden Council are knocking on people's doors saying, hey, look, you've got aircon, please get rid of it. Buy a fan. I mean, what world are we living in here?
Buy a fan and leave your windows open.
In Camden.
And they rejected the idea that might be unsafe. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. In the winter, they want us to be impoverished by trying to heat ourselves and end up cold. And in the summer, they want us to impoverish ourselves through enormous electricity bills and not be allowed to stay cool. It's absurd. It won't make any difference to the climate of the world. No. It will just make Brits less productive, hurt the economy and make us all miserable.
Indeed. I mean, the idea that there is a department that has time on its hands to be able to walk the streets of this borough of North London, looking out the window to see if somebody's either got a unit attached to the wall or one of those pipes hanging out the window. The fact that this even exists in our country is unbelievable.
And we all see things daily that aren't tackled, whether it's litter or antisocial behaviour or proper crime that doesn't get reported, doesn't get tackled, whether it's shoplifting or phone thefts. It goes on and on, but they can make sure you're not breaking a petty rule about keeping comfortable.
Indeed. Well, let's talk about this story, Annunziata. The 60,000 people who have no right to be in this country, and 50,000 have just apparently walked off and disappeared. I mean, this is not an insignificant number. I mean, we know we have, well, we don't really have an immigration policy. We have pretty much open borders. If you fancy rowing over here from France or coming on a rubber boat, you will find yourself accommodated and looked after. So that's the current state of play. But even by our own lacklustre and horrendous, inept standards on these things, to lose 60,000 people, I mean, that really does take some doing.
Well, and it's even worse than that. That is an estimate because the Home Office doesn't keep official figures. So they think that it's about 62,675 people that have possibly overstayed, but they don't actually have any idea. And then on top of that, you've got the criminals. You've got 1,200 criminals who have been convicted and then absconded. Yeah. And you've also got another just under 50,000 who got refused asylum and have just vanished. Yeah. If you then add in the 89,000, that's the backlog of work visa cancellations, you'll get to 250,000 people who shouldn't be here, but they don't really know where they are, or even if they are here. We would guess they are because they've tried to get here in the first place because we give them a cushy life. It
is rather, it's never lost on me that, and I say this quite a bit when we're talking about immigration. The importance of a passport and the mere idea, you know, sitcoms and books and newspaper columns have been written about the person that forgot their passport or they arrived at the airport only to discover it was out of date. I mean, you have zero chance of going anywhere if you're... In fact, it doesn't even have to be out of date in the EU. It just could be that it hasn't got enough left on the expiry date. So, you know, it's that important, it's that crucial, you will be refused. And if you kicked off at the airport and argued, they'd probably arrest you for it. So that is the sort of emphasis we put on security. And yet, simultaneously, over here, we have this other set of figures that a couple of thousand people a week could arrive on a rubber boat from Calais. In you come, no papers, and 60-odd, but as you rightly say, it could be 250,000 odd people are lost in the system and we don't know where they are. I mean, it's a tale, really is a tale of either two sets of values or two great examples of what is wrong with this country.
It cannot be rocket science to work out who comes in and who goes out of our country. We all have to, as you say, have passports. You get checked at the borders. Even the illegal ones who come over on the small boats in their thousands and throw away their documents, they are then taken to shore by our officials and they are then documented. How are we just letting them vanish into, as we know, the black market?
Yeah. Do you think Andy Burnham's going to solve the problem?
I think if the answer is Andy Burnham, you've asked the wrong question. Yeah. No, I can't see him tackling this at all. Keir Starmer talked about it. Andy Burnham's already done a U-turn on whether illegal migrants should have full benefits. He's very much on the left, have everyone who wants to come here and give them everything on a gold plate school of thought. He's not going to take a strong line, and a really strong line needs to be taken for the safety of everyone here.
Yeah, it's not in his DNA, is it? It's that kind of, you know, Starmer had the same thing. He gave it a little go at trying to pretend that he sort of cared and was going to smash the gangs, and that came to absolutely nothing. But ultimately, if it's not part of your philosophical, political makeup and template and underpinning of who you are, you're never going to get serious about this stuff.
I mean, I think if you don't fundamentally believe in the British people, you're not going to fundamentally believe in protecting them and protecting our country. And that is a huge failure of the left, that they think that we should be ashamed of our history, we should scrap all our traditions. And they don't fundamentally believe in the British, and therefore they won't do anything to look after us.
We do live in strange times, don't we? Someone please stop the madness. I want to get off. Annunziata, thank you as ever. Good to have you with us, Annunziata Rees-Mogg, who is head of comms at Popular Conservatism. Thank you to her. Carl says, most come from France over the Channel. Put them back there, not our problem. France can deport them wherever they came from. No borders, EU, not our problem. Thank you for that, Carl. Anne says, Anne here in Nottinghamshire, if we are doing our best to save the environment in the UK and China and the US don't care, why should we bother? That's the first point. Good point. Secondly, Andy Burnham is another nest-filling Labour politician. Are these people not employed by us? And why can't the British public... why aren't the British public able to call for an election? Well, I suppose we can call for it. It's just not likely to happen, is it? But they should change the rules on some of this because it's not... I mean, the Burnham thing, he's not alone in, you know, finding himself in what looks to be... I mean, somebody might stand against him, but I don't think so. And even if they did, they pretty much got no chance. So he's not the first to find himself being coronated rather than sort of voted in as the PM, even within his own party. But it's a very stark kind of example because this man wasn't even an MP 2.5 minutes ago and is now set to be the Prime Minister in around about 3 weeks' time. And when you look at that and think, wow, is that really? Is that really the case? There was a poll today that Britons believe Andy Burnham would make a better Prime Minister than Nigel Farage by 43% to 23%. Now, this is interesting because I keep saying this, even as recent as yesterday, and each time I say it, I have to say, I'm sorry to say it again. But that is the reason why Andy Burnham won't give too much of a hoot about Donald Trump is because the calculation they will be making is exactly what I've just read out. And I know it's only one poll, by the way, and there'll be loads of others, and we will see, how that bears out. But the bottom line is that they will bank on the fact that more people think like him than don't. Do Britons think Andy Burnham would make a better PM than other party leaders? Andy Burnham against Nigel Farage, 43% to 23%. Andy Burnham versus Kemi Badenoch. Andy Burnham, 32%. Kemi Badenoch, 28%. She'll be reassured by that. Andy Burnham versus Zach Polanski, 38% for Andy Burnham, 11% for Zach Polanski. Andy Burnham versus Ed Davey. He's the bloke from the Lib Dems, by the way. Andy Burnham, 32%. Ed Davey, 11%. This is a YouGov poll just taken. It's a snapshot. So the greatest result out of that, well, they're all better results for Andy Burnham. But the one that is, clearly going to be more reassuring than any other is the one that Kemi Badenoch's got. We shall see. We shall see. Polls, schmoles and all of that. 0344 499 1000. 2:15. This is Talk.
Britain has in some respects been the world's most successful country. It's given us the world's common language, the mother of parliaments, the Industrial Revolution, the emancipation of minorities, and yet I think there has been this besetting spirit of defeatism and declinism. People like Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair were exceptions to this. Just contrast, within 48 hours of the invasion of the Falklands, the Royal Navy could assemble some 40 ships to sail to the South Atlantic. Now it takes 2 weeks to deploy a single destroyer to Cyprus.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Just before we get back into the phones, I do want to take a moment to look at this story. 2 earthquakes a minute apart have killed at least 164 people in Venezuela, with the second measuring 7.5 magnitude, the strongest to hit the country since 1900. Let's speak with Dr. Lucy Easthope, disaster recovery specialist, author of When the Dust Settles. Lucy, good to have you with us. Just tell us firstly, is this an area, a terrain that is vulnerable, susceptible to earthquakes?
Yes, it is, and it's not a profound surprise, but it's an incredibly catastrophic set of circumstances, both human and seismic. It was a national holiday at the time that it happened, and that 2 earthquake factor is a really important consideration. In terms of look, I mean, we can always write these things off like storms and volcanic eruptions, etc. Mother Nature can be a cruel mistress, but this really does go to, pretty lethal territory. Controlling it is impossible, of course. The one thing I guess people hope for is notice. And if there is anything within the sort of tectonic plates or the various computer systems that are meant to keep their eye on this stuff, would there have been any opportunity for the Venezuelan authorities to have known that this latest catastrophe could have been on the cards? I haven't heard anything along those lines yet, but notice is incredibly important in earthquakes. But actually, it's what do you do with that information when you're giving In terms of climatically, there's some research that we may see more seismic activity during these kind of El Nino phenomenons that we're seeing. And really what you're asking countries like Venezuela to do, and all of the countries around that support them, is just being much readier to get there in the response, which we seem to be seeing a very heartening response at the moment.
Indeed, and that is great, and the fact that people can step in is good. But as you rightly said at the beginning, you know, and I mentioned 164 people have been killed, and that, of course, is just the number we have so far and likely to rise. And that's, you know, what does a country, what does any place do about that once an earthquake strikes? There's very little.
The first thing you see is this massive offer of help, and that in itself can be a secondary disaster for a country. It seems to be very well coordinated here. Disaster aid is always very interesting at times of political tension. So as you'll have seen, America were very early to offer support and have already gone in. All disaster aid is political, and lots of other countries, including Iran and Israel, have both offered support, and I believe the UK have in the last couple of hours. So there's a big coordination effort now. And really, you'll be trying to find people in the rubble for at least 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah. Then you move to what I work on a lot, which is the very, very long tail of aftermath. And that's very, very difficult for any country. But Venezuela was already seeing high levels of crisis and turmoil. So this is a very difficult time for them.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, rebuilding something, I mean, just the obvious question. It is clearly not the work of the moment. I mean, in practical terms, it's not going to be the work of the moment. Do people look to rebuild exactly in the same place that a previous earthquake took place? Does that increase the chances of another earthquake in that particular spot, or does it statistically reduce the chances? I don't know. What's the thinking when it comes to getting life back to a semblance of normality after something like this?
So that's where the seismic and the geological data is very important. So, for example, in Christchurch, after the earthquakes, decisions were made that people couldn't be moved back. And something similar would be very difficult to implement. This is, of course, Venezuela's capital in Caracas. You do see discussions about whether they've got the geology wrong. You can see particularly a move when they do build to move towards more earthquake-resistant buildings. I think you may see that. It's looking like the buildings, the majority of the fatalities have come from collapsed buildings, and that's an area that often we see people will reform the way they build after earthquakes. This one thing I would say is I expect we'll see some kind of international fundraising effort, and this is really an occasion to reach out to your fellow man and woman and donate if you can, but please do not donate second-hand items. That does not help at all. The sending of kind of goods and the stuff in our back bedrooms really does not help. It's only #cash not stuff at this time.
Got it. Lucy, thank you for joining us. Lucy Easthope, Dr. Lucy Easthope, disaster recovery specialist and the author of When the Dust Settles, who's looked at these scenes and devastating moments across the globe in many respects over the years. Thank you to her. We'll update you if and when we get more information. This one from Gary in Bridgewater. If it was up to me, I would add Ed Miliband to the benefits bill. He might be one of the few people that you would say, I'd gladly play his benefits for him to do nothing. Ed Miliband. Yeah, we'll all do it. We'll have a collection. We'll crowdfund Ed's early retirement. We should get that going, actually. I think you'd get quite a lot of people. A crowdfunder to urge Ed Miliband to retire. You'd have to make it sort of so tempting for him that he could go and live in a place with a windmill and a solar panel and never have to work again. It's in the nation's national interest. Mark's in Lincolnshire. Mark, what have you got for us? Afternoon to you.
Afternoon, Ian. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. Yeah, fire away.
Jolly good. Just following on from Dan's call, really.
Yeah.
So I fully agree with what Dan's saying there. He actually sounds very much more like a Restore voter than a Reform voter. They're the only ones really talking about this kind of level of problem. But he's right. We need to deport at least about 10 million people in this country. The reality is, since 1950, Ian, against the public wishes, really, successive governments have imported about 22.5 million people. I mean, that is, it's a big term to use, but that's borderline ethnic cleansing. you know, at the end of the day.
Well, some would put that spin on it, and that's fine. It's a democracy and people can have that view. The spin I would put on it, Mark, is that whatever the rights and the wrongs are, this country is never going to get rid of 23 million people or even 10 million people. So whatever ideally we think should happen, we can all probably agree that ain't going to happen.
I'll disagree with you on that point. I think it's more a case of how bad it has to get before people will agree to a party or a government that would do it. Put it like that, because that will eventually happen, Ian. As sectarianism becomes worse and worse, we will find ourselves in a position where, you know, what I've just said becomes a fairly accepted, fairly normal statement to make. You'd need a party in charge that would do it, though, right? Yeah, well, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, to go all technical about it, I mean, even Restore aren't really offering that. They're offering to deport all the illegals, which is about 2 million people. But they are at least on a backroom. They're having the conversation, but of course they're having a conversation. You've got people like Charlie Downs, Harrison Pitt, that are talking about this, that do realise that this is a problem, and we do need to address it. You know, and it is interesting because, as I said to Dan, I mean, you know, people will pick their own numbers and say, well, should it be, you know, Rupert Lowe, I think, has identified this sort of 2 million figure, and you just mentioned 23 million, and others would say, well, I think Dan said 10 million. So people could have this, and it's not a, you know, I can hear people on the left going, oh, my goodness, they're having a conversation about how many people they're going to kick out the country. That's terrible. No, well, that isn't the conversation we're having simply for the sake of having it. Oh, look, we don't like the look of them. I don't care whether they're white, brown or purple, frankly, or whatever faith they have. If somebody's not meant to be here and they've proven that they're not from here and can't pay their way here, I don't think it should be controversial that you might say to that person, well, thank you very much for coming. You had a good look around, but your time here is up. I don't think that's right-wing or any wing, frankly. That's just common economic sense, if nothing else. I just don't know whether you could do it. Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to deport 20-odd million, by the way. I'm more in line with Dan on the 10 million figure. I think, practicality-wise, you don't even really need to be looking at forced deportations. I think, looking at the numbers a bit more, you could just implement a system where, you know, no more benefits are paid, social housing, all this stuff, education. You remove all that from these people, they will just leave on their own. Because they'll essentially have no choice. Either that... But that isn't going to happen, is it? No one is going to suddenly say to a family down the road, right, you're not allowed to use the hospital. Well, as their nan lay dying on the floor of the kitchen. Well, as I said to you, Ian, eventually the level of sectarian violence will get so bad in this country, people will quite happily demand that. Well, on that point, Mark, on that point, we haven't spoken since Restore's first by-election attempt. It didn't end particularly well for Restore. I don't think it was the vote-splitting thing that stopped reform either, by the way. What did you make of the significance of that? Because I think you'd suggested that they were probably going to win it. That was a hope, I said. Right. In an ideal world, I would have loved them to win it, obviously. I'm actually quite happy with that 7%. It's, you know, for a 4-month-old party, Ian, you know, you look at the reality of this reform that was formed back end of 2019. They didn't do their first by-election, which was Hartlepool South, I think. Back in 2021, that was their first by-election. They clocked 1.2%. The following on from that, Chatham or somewhere like that, they only got 0.2%. You know, so 7% is actually pretty bloody good for a 4-month-old party. Yeah, do you think, I mean, there's many ways to discuss this. I mean, we were in sort of extraordinary times where a by-election and those taking part have never been given more prominence, publicity and issues around an election as they were on this. It's never going to happen again, right? Because, of course, the Andy Burnham thing, you know, what people were voting for was the bloke that's likely to be our next Prime Minister. So that gave everything a completely, some might say, a slightly exaggerated form of what would normally happen. Yeah, I mean, I think we would have done significantly better if it wasn't for the Get Starmer out vote. which is essentially what that by-election really turned into. I mean, I think Reform have admitted that themselves, you know. I know I would certainly admit that, because that was definitely the case. I just think that, as I say, you know, going forward, it's not actually that bad. I think it's a really good base to build from, 7%, you know, I really do. And who knows what the next by-election does, you know, what comes out of that, because we just don't know at the end of the day. I just think that, you know, all in the round, I just want to see the right-wing parties move towards more of the idea that the native people of this country need to be protected.
And that shouldn't be. It's been allowed to become a controversial point. It's been allowed to kind of grow to become a right-wing point. And it really isn't. And I've no idea. It's distasteful and grossly negligent of politicians to write it off as such when there are clear and obvious problems, not just in terms of the financial ability of a country to function with X amount of people in it. Social cohesion, which you touched on, Mark, is absolutely massive, often gets relegated in these debates. I think it should be, frankly, top of the pile. All of these things should be discussed fairly. My only guess now, apart from, you know, if you're Labour or Lib Dems or something, is that the Conservatives and maybe Reform would look at this and go, it would just not be physically possible. I don't know. Mark, thank you. That's all I could imagine. Somebody gave us that figure, didn't they, the other week, that it would take 70 years if you wanted to reduce the population by 2 million quid, by 2 million people, to send people back, those people that were identified of not contributing, or for whatever. So foreign nationals, not people that just happen to work here for, you know, the neurosurgeon from Nigeria or the visitor from Australia who's working in PR aren't going to automatically lose their jobs because they're foreign. But those that have contributed nothing, as Dan put it, absolutely nothing. There's no tangible spreadsheet that will show any contribution from the time you arrived to where we are today. So if you wanted to have that conversation, that's a great conversation to have. And again, should not be written off as extreme. It almost should be incumbent on you as a politician to have that conversation. Talking about it and doing something about it are two very different reasons. And that's why I think the Conservatives, and to a degree Reform, will probably be fairly resistant to going deeper on those numbers. 0344 499 1000. It's 2:30. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Excuse me, glass of water. It's a hot day, don't you know? Sadiq Khan will fly flags of all sorts of causes outside City Hall. We know this. If you've been down there, you'll have seen it. But the St George's Cross has gone up just 6 times in his entire time as the mayor. Reform's Alex Wilson has launched a petition demanding that should change for the World Cup. Alex Wilson joins us now. He is, of course, Reform UK group leader for the London Assembly. I'm glad you've crunched the numbers, Alex. I was unaware of that stat. Nothing about it surprises me. What's going on over there in Sadiq Khan's mind?
Well, it's ridiculous, isn't it? We have a World Cup going on at the moment where the England national team are doing their best to, fly the flag on the pitch for the country. And it only seems sensible and fair to me that on our public buildings, we should be doing the same. And I mean, ideally, I'd like to see the Cross of St George fly all year round, but we're not going to get that, I don't think, from Sadiq. But what we could do and should do is certainly, while we have an England team competing in a major international tournament, whether that be the World Cup or in the rugby, could be the Six Nations or Rugby World Cup, Cricket World Cup, football, cricket, rugby, major national sports, major national teams doing their best to represent the country and represent the whole country. It's something that everyone should get behind, and that should include the Mayor of London. I mean, he is a football fan himself, so he ought to recognise that it's something worthy of our support.
So at the moment, there is no St George's Cross outside City Hall?
No, I'm afraid not. We've got 3 flagpoles. We have the Union flag correctly on one of them all year round. The others are used for various other things. I mean, this morning we had a lovely ceremony for Armed Forces Day, raised the Armed Forces flag, which was brilliant. Fully support that, and I really enjoyed that ceremony this morning. But we've seen all sorts of things flown over the years. We've various different versions of pride flags and intersex flags, and so on. Earlier this week we had Windrush Day. All these kind of sort of woke events we get celebrated at City Hall. But we don't seem to want to celebrate the national team playing in this massive tournament, which is a really exciting tournament. I've enjoyed it so far. The roller coaster of following England is very much alive. But I think the national team, the boys, they're working hard for us. We should show our respect and our support for them. We should do that by flying the flag.
I don't imagine that if you went to, I'm trying to think of sort of, Edinburgh, for example, to their main, there's not, to my knowledge, a mayor of Edinburgh, but there is a big administration in Edinburgh, and at City Hall, or whatever the equivalent name is in Edinburgh, I'd imagine there's a Scottish flag being flown, not a Union flag, a Scottish flag. So you might think, putting the World Cup aside, there, by dint of this administration of London being in England and in the capital, that there'd be a St George's flag there anyway.
Well, yeah, you'd hope so. I would like to see the St George's flag fly all year round. And reform councils, where we've taken control of councils in the elections last year and this year, a very simple flag policy: the Union flag, the Cross of St George, and the relevant county flag. Ideally, I'd like to see that happen in London as well. But obviously, we don't hold the mayoralty, and we don't have an election for that for another 2 years. But in the meantime, as I said, for major sporting events to show our support for the team, we should be flying the Cross of St George at City Hall. It is the capital city of London, as well as being the capital city of the country as a whole, and there really is no excuse for not doing it. So, I've asked it to happen. It hasn't happened. That's why I've had to launch a petition. Already got about 1,100 signatures, hoping to get quite a few more, and then I'll present it to a future meeting of the Assembly. But if any of your viewers and listeners want to sign, then please look it up at tinyurl.com/flytheflagforengland. You can sign it there, and it will automatically fill into the petition there.
Good work. On the point of flags, Alex, I noticed that you are sitting in front of quite a large flag, which I could identify instantly that some of it looks like the county flag of Essex, which was that 3 swords, the county flag of Essex?
Yes.
And then the other half looks like, is it some kind of Norwegian flag?
No, it's the flag of Normandy in France.
Oh, Normandy.
Essex is the county of my birth. Born and grew up in Colchester. Very proud of my roots there. Normandy is a wonderful part of France that I spend quite a lot of time in. Both.
So it's a place you play. Yeah, I mean, you can, by the way, fly whatever you like. It was the other one on the other side that I was wondering. So you've got Essex and Normandy, you say. Does that stay with you wherever you go? Is that attached to your back? I don't know. When you walk around, is it still there?
No, but I am wearing on my jacket at the moment, which I'm not wearing right now because it's far too hot. I've got a Cross of St George.
Good work.
Cross of St George cufflinks as well. I've been wearing for the last few days. Very proud of the flags that I identify with, and I just wish that our dear leader in City Hall would do the same. Yeah, we all do. Alex, thank you. Alex Wilson, Reform UK Group Leader for the London Assembly, speaking to us in front of an Essex flag. You don't get the county flags? How many people even know their county flag? I know that the Kent, it's a horse, isn't it? Right? It's a white horse. The Invicta horse, I think I'm right in saying. And Essex has got the little
swords. What else have we got out there? I should know. When I was in the Cubs and the Scouts, I used to collect those badges. You know, you can collect Cub badges from around the world. And if you got an American one, it was a bit like getting an American police badge. They just looked like they were different territory into the Wyoming 28th Region Scout Unit. It was an amazing bit of tapestry that those kids sewed to their... So I sort of got familiar with some of the sort of county stuff back then. I've sort of forgotten it all. And I've probably got a Cub badge collection somewhere that one of those collectors will pay a few quid for. There's all sorts in there. And I got to know also... You got to know sort of towns and places, significant places within those counties, which was, I don't know how helpful that was growing up, other than the fact that I sit here now doing a job where I talk to people from all over the place, like Edinburgh, for example, which is where Greg is right now. Afternoon, Greg.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Very good, thanks. What are your thoughts? What have you got for us?
Well, I was just, it was your earlier discussion about our new-to-be Prime Minister and going to America and bigging it up on the world stage, and are we ever going to be able to be big players again that people listen to? And I just come to the conclusion, as I have for so often, it's just all about ego for them, isn't it? It's about them. It's not about the country. And as I said to your researcher there, your producer, do we really care what people think about us on the world stage or what influence we have? As long as living well here is good.
There is is there not a kind of irredeemable collective when it comes to things like defence? That seems to be really central.
That of course, it'd be nice to have allies if you were ever in trouble, of course, and countries that you got on when you would go to defend. But you were talking about, they don't listen to us. We're not relevant, and we're not an example on the world stage. But is Norway a huge example on the world stage? But it's the richest Croesus, and the services they have for their people.
But I suppose the British kind of inclusion in global affairs has always been significant and perhaps, punching above its weight in many respects. And that would certainly be the case for armed forces. It's been the case financially in the past as well. And of course, in lots of areas, you can look at technology and computing and AI and that sort of thing, where we're pretty pivotal in those conversations. So for a small old place, and of course we have a history as to why that dominance once existed, are you saying we've got to sort of get over that and move away from it?
Yes. It's of no significance now that we used to be the number one in the world 200 years, 100 years, 200 years ago. Now we're at the bottom of the league when it comes to people being safe in the streets, when people are... What difference does it make that if the Prime Minister get to swank about on the UN when there's pensioners on trolleys in A&E?
Yeah. I hear it. I hear what you're saying. Listen, Greg, thank you for that. I mean, some would say that was a pessimistic assessment. We have visited this subject before. Do we have to just get used to the fact that we are a whole lot more insignificant than we once were? And there's many reasons for that, and the finances that are just not stacking up and haven't done for 20, 25 years. The reason we can't put that amount into defence that we should be putting into defence is very simple. We don't have the money to put it in there. We certainly don't have the will either, but, if the money was there, at least the argument would be a little more poignant. But we don't have that. We can't just go, hey, here's 7%. That might work. So there's that point. The United Kingdom, Great Britain, its dominance globally, how important, how crucial is that in the sense of what Donald Trump is looking for? I think Donald Trump does have the kind of old-fashioned view of this country, and he does feel that this is a place where, he's obviously got roots because his mother was from Scotland. He likes the place. He's got a good relationship, had a great relationship with the late Queen, and seems to have continued to form a good relationship with King Charles. And this might be all unconventional stuff, but seems to have done that. So I think I think Trump does have a kind of romantic notion of what the United Kingdom should be and what it should be doing. Ben in Stockwell says, how is flying a flag going to help improve people's standards of living? The Reform Party is a total joke, says Ben. Well, if that was the only question, I don't know anybody who flies a flag in order to improve your standard of living. I don't think that is a thing, is it? If you look at countries around, the obvious one is go to Brussels, go to Belgium, see how many EU flags you will find there. I don't think it improves their standard of living. To them, it's about an identity, and the identity sows a collective, and if you have a collective, you have a much more fruitful, if you have a collective and it works well, you have a far more solidified purpose as a people. So it's healthy to have that collective, and a flag is a small part of it. You could sort of argue that. Unless anyone is genuinely going to say that their cost of living crisis went away the minute they shone up a flagpole and stuck a flag on it. This is John, who's over here in Huntingdon. John, what have you got for us? Hello.
Hi, Ian. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Fire away.
Just touching on what you were chatting about earlier with regards the call to prayer.
Yes.
It is an assimilation thing. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But why are they? I mean, it's a show of domination nowadays, and it's for them, immigrants, if you like. I'll just roughly term it as immigration. It's for them to assimilate into the British way of life, not for us to get used to their way of life being thrust upon us 3, 4, 5 times a day. And in the modern world, there is no need for it. Everybody has got a phone. Most people have got a watch. Set an alarm. You know when you need to go and pray. Don't foist it on the rest of us who, in a nutshell, if we're not actually Muslim ourselves, we don't care. Yeah. We don't want to hear that. If I played my music really loud 3, 4, 5 times a day,
sure,
eventually I'd have a council official knocking on the door.
I would agree. Of course, religion becomes a separate thing, though, doesn't it? Because it's about people's right to practice their religion. And you're right. You're absolutely bang on, by the way, John. I don't disagree with you. And I do think that a call to prayer is not a kind of... It's not subtle, if you like. I mean, it's right there, isn't it? There's nothing subtle. Yeah. I'm not suggesting that in the right environment in Islamic countries, it's absolutely perfect. And in fact, if I was a tourist visiting an Islamic country, I'd be disappointed if I didn't hear it, probably. But we're not an Islamic country, so therefore I'm not disappointed when I don't hear it, because that's not what it's meant to be. So it does kind of... I don't think it was designed to upset people, but I think inevitably, if you hear that regularly in a certain area, it's a very domineering example of someone saying this is our culture and it's a separate culture from your culture. And that you can simultaneously... I'm always uneasy about banning stuff as a kind of, if you like, as a liberal-minded person. I don't want to ban things, what people wear and stuff, but I think we might be onto something with the call to prayer.
There has to... I mean, like I say, I agree, to start banning things for any population, you're on a hide into nothing.
Yeah, you start to go down a funny route then, don't you?
Yeah, but we need to have some sort of, something in place and say, look, a bit of respect. We respect certain aspects of your life. How about, not blaring these things out and have a bit of respect for our traditions. We don't do that. And like I said, there are other ways of being able to be called to prayer without having to put it on speakers in the middle of a town or city, and just, at the very least, wind a lot of people up. But there's other times you just don't need to hear that, and they are starting to push some of their sort of non-British traditions, if you like. I mean, praying in the middle of a street and holding up the traffic.
Yeah, you can't do that. That should be that's a complete no-no, right? That's a complete no-no. And on an aeroplane, the last place I want to see somebody praying is when I'm 33,000 feet in the air. So, you know, let's stop all that tomfoolery. Listen, I've got to move. John, thank you very much indeed for that. Mr. Glenn Stewart Westerman says, or just Glenn in Leeds, says, I bet you a quid everyone in Yorkshire knows their county flag. We have a county day, August the 1st. I can confirm our county flag is flown from the town hall. Well, I would assume that's a white rose, right? I'd have to make that assumption. Surely that would be the case. I was going to add something else in then, just on the back of... Yeah, because, I mean, Lancashire would be a red rose, wouldn't it? I'm guessing. What, the red rose? Yeah. Because red rose was everywhere. When I lived in Blackpool, Lancashire, even the radio station was called Red Rose Radio. Seriously. Yeah. Is that still a thing? Is it still there, Red Rose Radio? I think it was in the radio station was an old church in Preston. I remember that much. I remember going there once, and I can't remember why I went there, because I wasn't working in radio at the time. But I love listening to it, because the legend that is Alan Bezic did a late-night phone-in on there, and I was just absolutely hooked on. I thought, this is something else. Alan Bezic, late night, this is something else. Anyone in that neck of the woods will know. He went to work at BBC Manchester for some years, and I'm sure somebody told me about a year ago he retired, only about a year ago. But what a career. But he was something else, and he was doing stuff on the radio you would never get away with today, I can promise you that. 0344 499 1000, 10 to 3, this is Talk.
Britain has in some respects been the world's most successful country. It's given us the world's common language, the mother of parliaments, the Industrial Revolution, the emancipation of minorities, and yet I think there has been this besetting spirit of defeatism and declinism. People like Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair were exceptions to this. Just contrast, within 48 hours of the invasion of the Falklands, the Royal Navy could assemble some 40 ships to sail to the South Atlantic. Now it takes 2 weeks to deploy a single destroyer to Cyprus.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, just gone. We're coming up on 5 to 3. Back to the calls in a second. Voice of Doom, day 7. This is the mystery. I know I have to explain this every day. The mystery voice, but it's a political mystery voice. So it could be anyone, usually a politician, but somebody obviously and absolutely connected to politics in a clear, unequivocal manner. They could be dead or alive. They could be left-wing or they could be right-wing. Your task is very simple: to identify who is this?
Any of the noble aspirations.
It's a hard one. We're on day 7. Here it is again.
Any of the noble aspirations.
Any of the what?
Any of the noble aspirations.
Who's that then? 87222. If you think you know, 87222 is the only way to take part. It is not. What's been some of the regular guesses? Somebody's been guessing one every day. There's been a really odd one. It was somebody. Cyril Smith, it is not. It's not Cyril Smith, all right? Nor is it... It's not Barack Obama or Gloria Hunniford that came up quite recently. Let's hear it again.
Any of the noble aspirations.
87222, if you think you know who that is. We'll let you know if we get a correct answer. Greg is in Surrey. On air conditioning, Greg, what have you got for us?
Hi, Ian.
Hi.
Yeah, I wish I had air conditioning on. So I've been a planner for about 45 years now, Ian, so I reckon I've got a small idea about how that's done.
I'd have thought so.
Right. And I think there's an awful lot of fuss made about this air conditioning, like that people like to think is a bit of a story or not. So if I can give your viewers and listeners the benefit of my considered opinion, completely free of charge this afternoon.
Yeah.
It's just a gentle smile the next time they wave a planning officer goodbye at their doorstep.
Go for it.
Basically, and this broadly applies to houses rather than flats, and the reason why is because where you have a flat, you have a landlord, and the landlord can always tell you he doesn't want you to make any alterations to his building. So by and large, it relates to people who have houses.
Sure.
Now, the thing is, you do not plead planning permission for anything that is not development. And something that is not development is defined as that which does not materially affect the external appearance of your house. So, for example, if you put the air conditioning plant in your garage where it can't be seen, then it's not development. So you can do all of that in your house and you can't be seen. And even air conditioning units have been deemed not development because they're so small when they're stuck on the outside of a building that they go along with all the other paraphernalia.
Sure.
So it isn't an automatic no. Of course, if you want to shove Jodrell Bank on the side of your house, you might be not too surprised if the planning officer turns up.
Well, that's very true.
Yeah, exactly. But if he or she do, just say politely to them, why do you think this materially affects the external appearance of my house? Yeah. And then they'll topple off on their way.
That would be a different argument than the environmental argument, wouldn't it? That we're hearing that these characters down there in Camden are having.
Yeah, well, of course, in Camden, the problem with, dare I say it, because I do planning every day, is that a lot of local authority planners are a bit wet behind the ears, like they often are in these things, and they're sent out by their lords and masters to tell these people that it's got nothing whatsoever to do with saving the planet, Ian. Yeah. It's got purely and simply to do with that. And that's been in planning law since 1947, and people tend to forget these things, except for old gimmers like me.
Well, thank God you're there. I can say that much. Brilliant. Greg, listen, enjoy the rest of the planning. It's Greg in Surrey. No, I did know this bit of news. I got an alert this morning. Children have been banned from paddling pools during the heat wave after an emergency hosepipe ban was imposed. South East Water has issued restrictions on homes across Kent, with water to be used only for essential daily needs, including hygiene, good luck with that in Bromley, drinking and cooking. The water company added that people should not use hosepipes for watering gardens, washing cars, patios, boats, and for filling swimming pools and paddling pools while the country experiences record-breaking temperatures. Right, I've got a couple of questions from this. I filled up a paddling pool about a week ago. It's been topped up. It was last topped up 2 days ago. I haven't got to get rid of that, have I? I can keep that's in there. Because I don't care if they paddle in any old gunk, frankly. I'll stick baked beans in there if I have to. But at the moment, it's got water in it. So I'm all right with that. But here's the kicker. Saturday morning, job that I had penciled in was to jet wash the patio. I mean, I cannot tell you how important this is to me. That's a no, right? Can I not use, like, Evian? It'll be... I'll tell you what, that'll be a patio like no other. Nice patio. Evian? Yes. With a little wink as you do it. I could give it a go. I don't think it's going to work. Jill's in Cornwall. We've not got long, Jill, but I'm sure you can do it for us. Good afternoon.
Hi, Ian. Yes, I'm hoping to. It's too hot where I'm standing.
That's all right. You go for it. Give us 30 seconds of your best.
Well, I am fed up with the fact that we are being asked to accept Islam culture to the point where it affects what we do, where we go, what we say, and everything else. You know, we have a situation where the Muslims already have their own courts of justice, which is ridiculous because we've got a justice system in this country. And now it's, you know, and then it's covering their heads, covering their faces.
So you think the whole ID thing, the identity, is over dominant in a country such as us? Jill, I've got to step in. I hate to do it to you, but point taken. Thank you for that. Here's the voice of doom.
Any of the noble aspirations.
Who's that? 87222.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is the Afternoon Empire. Welcome to the home of common sense. We're coming up on 3 minutes after 3 o'clock. Blimey, time flies today, doesn't it? Still a nice day. It's going to cool down. Here's the thing that kills me about the whole weather thing. Because, yeah, it's hot and they've now banned the hosepipe thing. But next week it's going to cool down somewhat. It's going to be sort of in the 20s. That's called summer. The idea you can't use a hosepipe in the summer in the 21st century is ridiculous. However, we are where we are. And at the moment, the heat wave is still very much on. I'll tell you what else is very much on. Andy Burnham picking the curtains for number 10 as we speak. As he does this, serious questions are being asked about what kind of leader he's likely to make on the world stage, particularly in the USA. Yesterday, Donald Trump made his initial opinions on Burnham known. Wasn't pretty, by the way. Can our next Prime Minister, can Andy rebuild that special relationship? More comment from you on the way. Also this afternoon, that leaked government report that has revealed that more than 60,000 migrants have no right to be in Britain, with over 50,000 illegal migrants and foreign criminals simply vanishing after absconding, including 1,200 known offenders, in numbers that now exceed the entire asylum decision backlog. And as I just alluded to, Britain is in for a very hot June. Overnight temperatures last night hit a record. Homeowners are simultaneously being ordered by council planning officers to tear out air conditioning units under net zero regulations. It's classed as cooling your own home as a last resort. So you don't need that aircon unit that you paid out for. They're not cheap, by the way. Even the ones where you hang the pipe out the window are not cheap. Get yourself a fan instead. Yeah, if the fan worked better, we'd just have the fan. They're not practical, the big ones anyway, but some people have them, and Camden Council were not happy about that, got a bit grumpy. 0344 499 1000. This comes from Julian in Oxford, who says, Ian, we voted many times to prevent or limit mass migration, but the politicians are not interested. If we then vote in a party that wants to deport migrants, why should anybody be surprised? The problem is the longer it goes on, the harder it gets to do anything about it. Scott Morrison said it. If you get immigration wrong, the effects will last for generations. This is the former Prime Minister of Australia, who spoke with us yesterday on this programme. He made that right. You've got to... Immigration is something... There's almost an art form to it in how you do it. Boris Johnson just thought, let's just get loads of people over here and then we'll have enough people to work in care homes. Yes, we needed some people to work in care homes. We didn't need that amount of people. Tony Blair, when we had that EU arrangement under Blair, opened up the doors in a way that he didn't actually need to. He could have done a very different arrangement with the EU, and there would have been almost immigration by instalments. So you test the water per X amount of people. Most people were coming to work, that's fine, but you would still control it. The effects, as Julian has just pointed out, the words of the former Aussie PM yesterday, if you get it wrong, the effects will last for generations, and that's absolutely the place we are in. 0344 499 1000 is where you will find us. Now, we're talking a lot about climate, and climate, of course, comes in the form of the council coming round, taking your aircon unit. And today, my local county council banning me from using a hose pipe. Apparently they've run out of water, money. I don't know what's happened. Let's speak to Dr. Bjorn Lomborg. He is academic and author of False Alarm: How Climate Change Panic Costs Us Trillions, Hurts the Poor and Fails to Fix the Planet. He joins us live from the ARC conference in Olympia. Dr. Bjorn, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good to be here, Ian.
It's very strange, isn't it? Every now and again I feel like my country, your country, all of us really, are kind of going back in time. You know, the motor car is the obvious example, this incredible innovation, not so many years ago, relatively, that brought a whole new meaning to the term social mobility. What a fantastic invention. It's now seen as kryptonite to many people. If you own one of those things, people are pointing at you these days because it's a petrol-driven car. I'm being told today if I used my hose pipe, I'm a very bad man, I could go to jail. If you live in North London, the police are coming round, the council saying, get rid of your air conditioning unit, you're playing with the net zero targets. What has happened to planet Earth, Bjorn?
Well, so fundamentally, there's a real problem called global warming or climate change, and it is something that we eventually need to fix. But people have become so obsessed with this one thing and with unrealistic timeframes that they have literally gone to points where they're making you do exactly these things, telling you, no, you can't have air conditioning in heat waves. What kind of silliness is that? Look, we all heat our homes in the winter because it's a smart thing to do. And of course, likewise, we should be cooling our homes in the summer. It's not rocket science. You mentioned the car. Cars are great. Eventually, probably, a lot of these cars will be replaced by electric cars, but they're not ready just yet. For most people, certainly not.
So we're in this, what is called an emergency. I mean, this became another little twist, didn't it, in the language in your country, in this country, where suddenly they settled on climate change. There was global warming, and then it became climate change. And then suddenly the word emergency seemed to crop up. Everybody was saying the climate emergency.
And you know, remember the Biden administration and many others went even further and said it's an existential crisis. Actually, a new OECD report shows that 60% of all people in the rich world believe that unmitigated climate change is likely or very likely to lead to the end of humankind. And that's just simply bonkers. That's not at all what the UN Climate Panel is telling us. Yes, climate change is a problem. No, it's nowhere near the end of the world. It is a 2 to 3% problem in 100 years. That's what the climate economics is telling us. That's what the only climate economist to win the Nobel Prize is telling us. Not these, it's the end of the world. It is a problem. And of course, if you can find a way to fix this for, say, 1 or 2% of GDP, that's good. But unfortunately, right now, most people are suggesting to not really fix it, but spending 10, 20% of GDP. And that's just simply ridiculous.
Yeah, but of course, when you counter some of these arguments, Bjorn, you will know this. I mean, you're a scientist, but you would have had many more of these arguments than me. When you talk to people about the kind of curious way that some are arguing our life needs to change and money that needs to go in, if you put a challenge to it, you're met with this kind of stare of people because they believe they are saving the planet. I mean, literally saving the planet. This isn't about saving a couple of jobs or somebody having to change the... This is saving planet Earth, literally saving our lives. Now, if that is your starting position, it's hard to argue with these people.
Everything is justified, of course, and that's exactly why it is so important to keep the worry turned up to max or even 11. But the reality is this is not an emergency. This is not the end of the world. It is a problem, but there are many things that are problems, and we fix them typically by being smart. And we realize also we can't fix all problems at the same time. So we decide and we have a conversation about where should we spend our pounds first. Should we spend it where it will do the least good and cost the most? Probably not. And that, unfortunately, is what people are doing right now. Again, look at heat waves. Yes, we expect heat waves to become more common with climate change. The solution is obviously air conditioning, but also remember, in England and everywhere in the world, many, many more people die from cold than from heat. And we should be focused on saying we should also save all those people. And actually, because of warming, we have seen fewer people dying from cold than extra people dying from heat. You never hear that. And crucially, of course, the policies enacted to try to save the planet, sky-high energy prices, what does that mean? You can't afford to keep cold in the summer, and even pensioners can't afford to keep warm in the winter. That's just terrible, and that shows you how dysfunctional this conversation has become.
Indeed. Well, your book does major very much on that point as well, that this hurts the poor disproportionately, for the very obvious reasons. I mean, this whole climate evangelism is an expensive game, right?
And it's something that only rich people will talk about. They will say you need to cut down on air travel. Look, most people on the planet has never been on an airplane, and they would love to go, and more realistically, they don't have clean cooking facilities inside their little hut. They would love to be able to have natural gas or some other way of getting clean cooking. They would love to have clean way of keeping warm in the winter and the cold. These are simple things. People would love to get out of poverty. So again, when England is saying, oh, we're going to immiserate ourselves, we're going to, this is going to cost a fortune, but at least we'll show the way for the world. Nobody is looking at England or at green Germany or Europe for that matter and saying, ooh, we'd love, high energy prices, high debts and deindustrialization. That's not what most of the world will want. So China, India, and Africa are never going to be convinced by these self-immiseration policies. They're going to be convinced if we focus on getting better technology.
Absolutely. Tell us about Denmark. This is your country. We always consider, I think from a British perspective, we consider the Scandinavian countries, particularly Denmark, as being, you know, very progressive, sometimes ahead of the game in this kind of stuff. I know there's all sorts of issues around immigration going on in Denmark, which many people didn't think would happen in a Scandinavian country. But in terms of climate, where are you guys at? Is it like here, where the governments of all parties are pretty much pushing this religious agenda, zealot-like?
Yes, unfortunately. And look, again, I love my country. I think Denmark is great in many ways. You should go and visit. But fundamentally, we've decided we want to go green. And what have they done? They have put up immense amounts of wind turbines. We now get 70% of our electricity from solar and wind. That sounds great. But remember, we are only able to do that because we use Sweden and Norway as big batteries. So when the wind is not blowing, what do? We just draw on their power. Now, that's great for Denmark, but obviously it drives up the price in Norway and Sweden. And so what is Norway and Sweden now talking about? They're talking about cutting the connections, not renewing the cables that supply Denmark, and saying, we don't want to pay for your expensive climate policy. And so the reality is, eventually Denmark is going to realize trying to go net zero, trying to become green on just wind, which obviously doesn't work when the wind is not blowing, is going to be very, very expensive. And just remember, electricity is only, 20% of all energy consumption. So we still haven't attacked the vast amount of energy that we're still using. And the only way that Europe has shown the way is by deindustrializing, essentially shipping out jobs and production to China, India, Vietnam, other places. And obviously, that's not a great way to solve the problem.
Bjorn, just a final point, but perhaps maybe the biggest point in this, where did this come from? I mean, I'm aware, we've always been aware of environmental issues to a degree. When you're at school, when you're young, you're taught to be, kind and considerate to your environment. We don't want to throw litter all over the place. That's a terrible thing to do. You insulate the loft in your house because it makes basic common sense. What was the tipping point that we went from common sense to all-out madness on this? And who decided? Where was this collective of individuals, of brains that said, if we don't do this, we're all going to die? Was there a moment?
So Ian, I think you're absolutely right. We worried about a lot of things. So you might remember acid rain, where we thought all forests in Europe were going to be gone. Of course, it actually never happened. There was some truth to this, but there's also a lot of falsehood and exaggerations. Same thing with the ozone layer. A real problem, vastly exaggerated. But both of these were hard to sort of make global and make into everything policy. But climate change did become that very special issue. You can blame anything on climate change. There's a guy in Scotland who gave up looking for Loch Ness, and his argument was, well, climate change killed Loch Ness, the Loch Ness monster, right? And you're just like, what? So it doesn't mean that this is not a problem, but we have made it into this omni-problem, that everything is caused by it, and it's going to lead to the demise of mankind. Just simply not true. And I think it comes from, unfortunately, a very simple fact. Media loves bad stories, and blood and bad stories sell. And so media increasingly have just told you all the bad stories, none of the good stories, no context. And that leaves us all believing, oh my God, it might actually be the end. And so we're willing to spend a lot of money. But of course, the reality is, many other problems, and that's one of the reasons why we're stopping to be so worried about climate in most places, because we're starting to realize, oh wait, there's a land war going on in Europe, there's problems with education, with pension reform, and all these other things. Maybe we need to spend our money slightly smarter.
On that point, listen, Bjorn, it's been great speaking with you, sir. Thank you for sparing some time to talk to us. He is Dr. Bjorn Lomborg, academic and author. His book, False Alarm, How Climate Change Panic Costs Us Trillions, Hurts the Poor and Fails to Fix the Planet. He's a Danish political scientist. Thanking him, joining us live from the ARC conference over there in Olympia. Thank you to him. Your thoughts on that as well. The argument used to be, I think it was, now Christopher Hitchens, I think there's a lot of people listening to this who are engaged in kind of political thinkers and like searching them up. Christopher Hitchens, brother of Peter, sadly no longer with us, died some years ago, but just one of the most beautiful speakers with a mesmeric charm when he spoke on a variety of issues, everything from religion to things like climate. Now, he sort of took a view, I think, in the end, and he may have refined this, and I never saw one of his lectures, but he kind of took a view that we don't get a second chance. So we might have got it wrong about the destruction or the death of the planet. We're not absolutely sure. We know there's climate change. No one, by the way, is denying that. But whether it's man-made, of course, is the big factor. All the while there's a debate, let's give it a go, because you don't get a second chance. That was, I don't think I'm misrepresenting, certainly the last time I sought out Christopher Hitchens talking on this towards the end of his life, I think it would have been, bearing in mind the sort of newness, if you like, relatively of this debate. You don't get a second chance, so let's go for it, just in case. It's an insurance policy, although Bjorn's point there was it's a flipping expensive one. And people do need to live and heat their homes and not be priced out of their own pants for simply existing. Or penalised and given a criminal record for buying the wrong car or putting aircon outside of their house. James is in Exeter. On Ed Miliband, James, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
How are you, all right?
Yeah, good, thanks. Far away.
Good. So I'm very, very worried about Ed Miliband.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
And have you ever heard of carbon capture schemes before, Ian?
Yes, but they don't do necessarily what they do on the tin, right? Or what they say on the tin.
Yeah, exactly. So I work in construction. I visited a few of these projects.
Yep.
One in Teesside and there's one in Chester. And I think the government have committed 25 billion. And for people that don't know, it literally is they build a concrete plant. When concrete's manufactured, obviously carbon comes out of it. The carbon is compacted, and then they build kilometres of pipeline just to get this carbon and pump out to sea. They can't do anything with it. There's no use for carbon. And I am watching my government spend 25 billion, okay, it's over 10 years, on collecting carbon when I'm struggling to pay my bills for energy.
Yes.
I don't think it's right.
So it's, and this is particularly prevalent in the concrete industry, is that right?
Yes, correct, yes.
Because I know that there was, in fact, for the second time today, I'm going to mention Dale Vince, who's an environmentalist. You may or may not be familiar with him, James, but appears on the media from time to time, appears with us from time to time as well. So very much a man of the left, very much a man who would talk about climate emergency and the like, and very much against carbon capture. So it's
very good.
Yeah, so it's not, you know, he doesn't. I mean, I think his argument is broadly that it plays a very minor part in the overarching story. But boy, is it expensive, right?
Exactly, and even if you are someone who's very pro the environment, the UK is only 1% of the global emissions, I think. So
yes.
again, what difference are they going to make? It's like a fart in a gale.
For 25 billion quid. I mean, if somebody said, oh, it's 150 quid to do this, you'd go, all right, we'll give it a go. What's the harm? But it's not. These are telephone numbers, jaw-dropping figures. And as you rightly say, people's livelihoods struggling with cost of living, while the government is trousering 25 million quid of our money for something that is broadly certainly disputed, if nothing else.
Yeah, that's good. No, thanks for your time, Ian.
It's a pleasure. A great point as well. James, thank you. James in Exeter on carbon capture. This comes from Clay in Folkestone. Says, great show. Council's talking about ripping out aircon units from people's homes because of stupid net zero. Are they going to rip them out of the council offices and council meeting rooms, or are those idiots exempt? Best wishes. Clay, great point. I mean, we did raise this issue. If you went down to Camden Council's head office, is there no air conditioning component to their system there? Bet there is. We'll continue to take your calls in a couple of moments' time. 22 minutes after 3. This is Talk.
battle is really on, though, for number 11. Who's going to be the Chancellor? Ed Miliband, don't forget, has played an integral key role in this coup, and it is a coup because no one apart from 25,000 good people of Makerfield have voted for this guy. He is, probably the most left-wing person in the government, and he will spook the markets. He's a big spender. He's very anti-business. His net zero plans have led Britain, into a seriously, tricky waters. There's rumours that that there could be some movement on net zero from Andy Burnham. So putting Ed Miliband in the Chancellor job makes that very, very hard.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Paul in Fife, couple of points here, says, do we know if Burnham will get a whopping big pension from his time as Mayor of Manchester, just to add to the huge pension he'll receive from being our next Prime Minister? In fact, I would say confidently the answer is, I don't know whether he'll get a pension, like a payoff pension, yet, because he's not of an age. But it's even worse than that, because, of course, he's already got a ticking pension from his, 17 years at Westminster the first time around. And he would have been on the scheme when it was potentially more generous than it might even be today, which is still very generous, by the way. So he's got like a triple whammy coming his way. He's got his pension from time as an MP, 17 years, some of that as a cabinet minister, then Mayor of Greater Manchester. How long did he do as Mayor of Greater Manchester? Was it around about 6, 7, 8 years, something, 7 years, 6 years, have I got that right? But that will be added into a pot as well. And then he's got the new pension that's coming his way. There was a fellow I knew that worked at the BBC. I used to work alongside him for a bit. He did the whole thing of... got to the point where he could retire, was given a lump sum, and I won't reveal what it was, even though I'm not revealing the person, but it was pretty bloody big. So he got a lump sum and a monthly wage. And then he went back to the BBC to continue working and took out another pension. So, and he didn't, I don't think he lasted long enough for the second pension to have gone anywhere, but the fact is, obviously, he's paying in, and so are the BBC paying in as well, i.e. you and me. 0344 499 1000. Just before we talk to Pat, Voice of Doom. Now, the Voice of Doom, this is the voice that's been going on for 7 days now. Have a listen.
Any of the noble aspirations...
Very simple task. Who is that? These are some of the guesses. Cyrus Vance, no. Douglas Hurd, Michelle Obama, it is not. Mark Carney, Barry Goldwater, no. Billy Graham, no. Ian Paisley, no. Mark Carney. Let's have a listen again.
Any of the noble aspirations...
It's not Mark Carney. John Moore, it is not. And then someone's guessed Lara Bird. Now, Lara Bird, of course, is the SNP MP that was sworn in on the same day as Andy Burnham. She changed the T's and C's of her swearing-in oath, mixed it around a bit to show her true Scottish credentials. Let's hear that voice again, Sam.
Any of the noble aspirations...
Is that Lara Bird? Is that Lara Bird? And the reason I say that is because she is a woman of many voices. Let's have a listen to the proud Scot in action.
It's clearly also not about natural resources, because Greenland have made it clear that if the US want to mine for their natural resources, they can.
I do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to the law, so help me God.
So that's Lara, that's the same person speak. Can we just hear that again, please?
It's clearly also not about natural resources, because Greenland have made it clear that if the US want to mine for their natural resources, they can.
I do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to the law, so help me God.
So if both of those are Lara Bird, could this be Lara Bird?
Any of the noble aspirations.
Yes, is the right answer. We've got it. No, we haven't. But man, that could have been so close. I mean, I'd have put money on it, frankly. If she's that linguistically versatile. By the way, when she's speaking in the English accent, it's not just an English accent, is it? I mean, it's like a very nicely spoken English accent. That is the proud Scot, and only for Scots. She made that point in her oath at Parliament the other day. Lara Bird is not the right answer, but, you know, in another world, maybe. Pat's down in London. What have you got for us, Pat? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Well, before I go on to my main topic, she could give Mike Yarwood a run for his money.
Yeah, absolutely right. A little cultural reference for the kids there. Mike Yarwood could be the could be the next one. Waiting in the wings, Pat.
Yeah, I mean, getting on to climate change and all this thing. Well, look, I mean, going after people with the wrong cars and idling engines and having air conditioning in their homes and all this is easy meat for these people. I would love for Ed Miliband and all the other clients, the cop mob, to go out to Putin and get Putin and Zelensky and say, look, if you don't stop this war in Ukraine, which is a climate catastrophe, by the way, it pumps, I Googled it, in the first 3 years of it pumped 280 million tonnes of carbon into the atmosphere.
What did 280 million tonnes? Sorry,
in the first 3 years.
What pumped 200 million?
Well, I mean, exploding. I mean,
the bombs. Sorry, I see what you're saying.
And exploding tanks, burning tanks, exploding.
The whole thing. Yes, literally years and years of war. And all those explosions, absolutely. So we're talking about absolute, by their reckoning, economic carnage, environmental carnage.
Yes, and that is the main driver of. I mean, look at Palestine.
Yeah.
I mean, how these not no disrespect to the Israelis, they were trying to get out Hamas and stuff, but they've left that in an awful mess. And out in Iran, all that goings on out in Iran, all them jets taking off and landing from carriers, missiles, drones, you name it, it all adds. And this is what nobody ever... I mean, I'd love for Ed Miliband and all these acolytes to go out there and say, look, if you don't stop it, we're going to fine you trillions of pounds. Sure. They won't. They can't.
Yeah.
They won't. They can't. And so what they have to do is they have to stay at home and badger and harass and fine ordinary people, men and women, for doing minuscule things.
Yeah. I hear you, Pat. You make a great point. I mean, that's a massive point that you made, but it's just one of many that you could throw into the inconsistency of this argument. Thank you, Pat, down in London. I think the other one as well, which I've never quite got my head around, if we were about to die, then... Because you've noticed there's quite a... Although it is quite evangelical about going around people's houses saying we want to take your aircon away. I know they're not quite saying that, but more or less, to some people, one council, but nonetheless... elected officials and the windmills and the various disproportionate amount of money that is put into that department, rather than having a sort of slower let's do it as a parallel, you know, experiment, if you like. If it works, brilliant. But in the meantime, we'll carry on using natural resources. We'll do that. But if we were about to die, and when I say about to, so like in 100 years, which in historic terms, in the kind of timelines of how you plan for a planet, that would come under the category of quite soon. So if we're going to, then we would be doing, this stuff would be happening, there'd be lockdowns. You know, we know that they can do it if they want to, but there's not. So it makes you think, well, OK, they're not really locking down. So they're having this veneer of extremism when it comes to net zero. But actually, they're doing it in quite a clever way. And I don't think they're doing this to be generous to us, to get used to it. I think this is because there's money to be made out of it in all the right places. It is nuts. 0344 499 1000. Back with you in a couple of moments. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's say it is that time again, but we haven't done this for a few weeks. Sean Keach is with us, Head of Science and Technology over there at The Sun. We love this feature because, as we've explained many, many times, sort of tech stuff and science stuff, where once upon a time it just made sort of geeky magazines or chat rooms back in the day, are now dominating news and becomes front pages. And everything we talk about is now front page news.
Bringing it to the mainstream.
Bringing it to the mainstream. So where have you been for a month, Sean?
I say we, it is we, not I. We've had a baby.
Yeah, not me and Sean, by the way.
Me and my wife have had a beautiful baby. I've been dealing with a lot of nappies.
Yes.
There was a real poo explosion this morning on my way out the door, which is, my wife was not too happy about.
I know everybody says this, but nobody can quite work out how something that big can produce something like that.
It's tremendous.
It's very bizarre.
Projectile speed. He managed to escape his own nappy today. I don't even know how. Maybe he's going to be a magician one day. It's impressive.
Little baby Houdini. Listen, we're all very pleased with you, Sean.
Thank you.
And it's did I say with you or for? I should have said for you. We're pleased with you. You did a good job.
I can barely understand language anymore. I'm so tired, Ian.
The tiredness is just that. I'm told that mine are 12 and 7. I'm told that goes on till they're about 50.
Oh my God. I don't know if I can bear it. But
I have told this story before, that a few years ago, but I was just in a queue in the supermarket. There was an elderly lady in front of me. She was probably in her 80s, but very fit, and I was with my kids, and they were having a bit of a row between them. And she said, my children So, and it sounded very odd, but it shouldn't be odd because lots of people have parents this age, but it was just odd to hear her say, she goes, my kids are like 54 and 58, and it sounded so bizarre. She said, and I just want to tell you, it doesn't get any better. I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, it just changes. Your worries change and you still concern yourself about things.
I asked one of my neighbours when her kids started sleeping through the night, and she said with her son, it wasn't until he went to school. And I was like, oh, my God, I don't know.
There's all of that. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to the new paternity podcast here. Talk next week, how to change a nappy blindfold.
I think I need that course.
Which is doable. Listen, we've got lots to talk about, and our first one here is quite handy because we've been talking a lot about the weather, and it's kind of interesting. On Sunday, we've got a few Dyson fans in the house. They're quite old, a couple of them, because we've had them forever, when they never used to cost what they cost now. We got one about a year ago, because we needed one, and then had to give that to my mother-in-law, because she didn't have one this time around. So I went online on Sunday and thought, oh, there's one of those. The one I want is available. I'll get that. Sold. Well, no, it was there on Sunday. By Monday, it was sold out. So, but there is actually a Dyson handheld fan, which you have with you.
There is. This is the first, and I've been testing it out. I hope it's going to blow you away, Ian.
I'm sure it will. Hey!
Be a big fan.
It's good, yeah.
Here we go.
Look
This
at
is
this.
it. This is Dyson's first.
When you get that, Anne Summers, what's going on?
Yeah, it's a very masculine colour, as you can see.
Yes.
They picked this one for me, and it has a little twisty nozzle, so you can then put it in this little neck mount, strap it in there, put it around your neck, and it'll blow your chin, so it'll keep you cool as you're walking around. It's pretty good, isn't it?
Can I have a...
And then you can have a go. So it's got 5 settings, and then if you hold the up button, it's got a boost mode. So if you flick the toggle switch...
Yeah, toggle switch is on.
There you go, and then you can ramp it up. 5 different speakers.
Speaking to you from the very, very windy part of Southwark. It's gonna go... No, there's a road sign gonna smack me in the head for loads of YouTube hits. And then you can up it with the...
Yeah, ramp it up. Then you go all the way to the top. It reaches 55 miles an hour, which is pretty impressive.
Well, I could literally be blown out of this studio.
Yeah.
That is
it's
very...
not too noisy.
Wow, it is quite effective, look.
It's a great Dyson ad.
It's quite... I tell you what, it is a fan. That is a fan with a difference.
I'm quite jealous of you, to be honest.
I like this. Sorry to everybody listening. What is that noise? I'll turn it off.
And it looks a bit posh, I think, which is quite nice.
Do they only do the one colour?
No, there are 3 colours.
Okay,
they just decided to send me that one.
They sent you the pink one.
There's a more masculine blue if you'd rather.
Now,
I quite like it. It's nice.
Dyson makes some good kit. When you touch something Dyson, whether it's the hairdryer or the air conditioner or just the fan or the Hoover, well, it's like a vacuum rather, you're feeling some quality and real engineering. And that, of course, because it's Dyson, is reflected in the price.
Yeah, this is 99 quid, which is a lot of money, I suppose, compared to some of the cheap handheld fans. But, I mean, it does look like a nice bit of gear. It does blow you away, I like to think.
The trouble is, you couldn't really, because of the noise, you couldn't do a radio show with that one, could you?
And it might annoy people on planes and trains, I don't know.
Cabin crew ready for departure.
But a lot of Dyson stuff is designed in the UK. They've got this big campus over in Malmesbury, which I've visited, and it's really nice. And they've got a university on site where they train up the next generation of British engineers. And they've got like student halls on the accommodation, and they are the nicest student halls I've ever seen in my life. They are posh.
Well, they've got
and they
lots
have
of
Dyson
hoovers.
fans in as well, yeah.
And they can keep them nice and clean and nice and cool as well. Be a bit rubbish if they didn't have a fan, wouldn't it, this time of year? That is, so 99.99. I think that's called £99.99. But it's sold out, apparently.
Yeah, basically all fans seem to be sold out.
Yeah.
We luckily got a portable AC unit about a month ago, and that's been a lifesaver with the baby. And I'm sort of like lugging it up the stairs at night, then back down the stairs in the morning.
That's the one where you put the thing out the window?
Yeah, very heavy.
We've got one of those. They are heavy, but man, do they work.
Oh, they do. It's bloody brilliant.
Oh, my God. We've just got the one room, the bedroom, and so if you're doing anything around the house or anything in the garden, what we all do is then go, right, I'm going to take a break, I'll go and sit upstairs for 10 minutes and just walk into this fridge.
When I went up to my bedroom last night, it was 29.2 degrees, and we turned the AC on and we got down to 19. So I would pay probably triple what we paid for it. It was like 350 quid, I think. I would pay way more than that.
No, they're not cheap, any of them, are they?
I don't know how much it costs to run. I suspect I'm going to get a horrible bill next month, but I think it's worth it, really.
I didn't look at the meter deliberately. Sean Keach is with us. Let's move on to the social media ban. So what's happening with that? Because is it coming in? Is it not coming in? I'm hearing stories that in Australia it's failing miserably.
Oh, it is. There was a survey. I think 4 out of 5 kids in Australia are still using social media.
Yeah.
Turns out it's very hard to ban kids from doing anything online.
Correct.
They're very savvy. And I think, it's going to be one of those cases where the same thing will likely happen in the UK. But I think the government is hoping that it'll sort of still be a net good. And if they can catch some of this stuff, it's better than doing nothing. The children's charities have come around because previously they were sort of against a ban because they thought actually the onus should be more on the tech companies to get this right, get better features. The government is just pushing ahead with this. The NSPCC has come out and supported, said it's going to give kids their childhood back. And so most of the major platforms are going to be banned, including YouTube for kids as well, which is quite interesting. So YouTube Kids, the sort of special one, that's fine. Kids can still watch that. But proper YouTube, that'll be banned for
I've
children.
got a real problem with this area, OK? I don't know if I've talked to you about this, Finn, but we've talked about it a lot. So kids like YouTube.
They love YouTube. Everyone loves YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube is not actually the worst offender when it comes to material. You might get, you might listen to sort of, some particularly hardcore garage or rap or something and find, the N-word cropping up when you'd rather it didn't because it's out of context and all the rest of it. But you're not going to find hardcore porn on YouTube. No. You're generally not going to find that. You might find some weird stuff. Now, if you get a television, so if you buy a Samsung, for example, like most TVs, they will have Netflix, the Netflix app and the YouTube app built in. Now, if you want to watch YouTube Kids, you have to go to the YouTube app to sign in. And once they're on YouTube Kids, they can just toggle to YouTube.
TV is going to be a real...
There's no way of stopping them watching YouTube.
It's going to be a real problem, I think, for this ban, because there's so many people just have TV, and, they're not going to want to set up special parental controls. It's just going to be very difficult. But like you say, YouTube isn't really the big problem here. It's maybe YouTube Shorts with the sort of vertical feed, but they're really going after the sort of TikToks and X's and
they really
so
are.
On.
Just briefly as well, to go back to a weather-based story, your phone's heating up. I had it the other day because I left this on the dash, my phone, and it had that little...
the warning.
The little warning, little thermometer saying you cannot use your phone until it's cooled down.
That is, you definitely certainly don't want that.
No.
And leaving your phone in the car is an awful idea. I would say really avoid using your phone in direct sunlight, playing video games, watching high-resolution video in public, in the sunlight, because it permanently damages your battery. So, I mean, you might have had the problem where if you're using your phone in the cold and your phone shuts off, that's a bit of a problem, but it's not permanent. If you have heat damage to your battery, it's permanent. Your battery life will be permanently shorter. So really watch out for that. Be super careful with your phone in the sunlight, because you're going to be charging constantly if you find out that your battery's degraded.
But you could just buy a new phone with the money you're going to get from your lawsuit against Apple, maybe.
I don't know if you've had to buy a new phone with it. I think the compensation is going to be about £77. But which is the consumer champions, they have basically filed a claim against Apple with the Consumer Appeal Tribunal. I think it's a £3 billion lawsuit. It's basically about iCloud. So if you were using iCloud between November 2018 and June 2026, you could potentially be entitled to £77. This is going to be the lawsuit. It's basically saying that Apple hasn't given you enough choice with iCloud, because when you back up your photos and stuff on your phone, it automatically suggests iCloud. iCloud's really built into the system. Apple says, well, you're free to use other stuff. You could use Google Drive or Amazon Photos if you want, but none of them are really integrated as well as the iCloud system. Apple would say, well, I suppose it's better for security because we can manage that whole process. If they win, you could be entitled. I think 40 million people in the UK could be entitled to this £77, but the case won't be heard until October 2028. So you'll be waiting a while for your 77
quid.
But you don't have to opt in. Everyone's in by default, which is
I'll tell you what else you could do with 77 quid, and I find this interesting. Sam, one of our producers here, will find this interesting. He likes a gaming story. Finn is sort of, he did Pac-Man level 7. That's as far as he got. But you take look at him. No.
A legend of the gaming world.
I live in this. I'm reliving in this world now as someone with a 12-year-old. Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to come out, but there's a little twist to this. I read this story this morning and I thought I didn't know what to make of it really, because of course people either go for a digital download, but some gamers actually want the real thing. They want the disc. They want to be able to go, right, I like the disc, I like the collection on my shelf. I've got the first one, I'd like the 6th one. You can buy a physical version. Sort of.
Yes, so GTA 6, this massive game that's coming out later this year, they are selling physical copies, but it will just have a download code inside. It won't have a physical disc, which I thought was quite interesting. The game is 70 quid, which actually is probably par for the course these days. I mean, I think the budget for the game is something like $2 to $3 billion. I mean, it is just...
They've been at this for a long time.
They'll sell loads of them. It's going to be a massive game. I'm sure it'll be very good. All the previous ones have been very popular, still played by tens of millions of people. But the disc is interesting because often when people buy games and you have the physical disc, you can lend it to friends, and when you're done with it, you can sell it on CEX. But we're really moving away from that world. I think games companies don't.
That seems to be one of the questions, doesn't it? A lot of gamers are asking, what do you do? So you presumably you get the case. Which you can go to HMV or Game that used to exist. They're not around anymore, are they? Are they still there? A Game's still there.
No, Game's gone. CEX,
is it gone?
CEX still exists. Game is
or
mostly
is it part
gone.
of House of Fraser or John Lewis?
Yeah,
or something?
it's mostly.
Anyway, so you go in there and you would find, you'd find it on the shelf, you'd buy it. So you'd still be able to buy the case, and you open up the case and there's just a number in there.
It's a bit like buying a CD case with like a link to Spotify or something, isn't it?
Yes, it's exactly. There's no. But what can you do with that number then? Because when you finish, can you sell the number afterwards?
No, it's assigned to your account. So once you plug that download code into your account, it's locked down.
So the whole,
CEX's business model of buying and trading games, I mean, this puts pressure on them as well.
Well, that completely changes everything. Boot fairs will not be the fun that they once were.
Certainly not.
What's interesting, Grand Theft Auto is going to cost about 70 quid.
Yeah, or 90 if you buy the special edition.
If you buy the special edition.
Which gets you some bonus items.
I think I'm right in saying that the first Grand Theft Auto was about 55, 56 quid.
Yeah, I mean, actually...
So that doesn't strike me as... because a lot of people go, 70 quid for a video game. Well, if the first one, when was the first Grand Theft Auto?
Oh, it's 90s. And then the GTA 3, which was the big one.
The original PlayStation.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was actually plugging in, because I remember in the early 2000s, games were about 40 to 50 quid.
Yeah.
Looking on the Bank of England inflation calculator, that comes out about 70 to 80 quid. So it's about right, really.
About right,
but it just I suppose if you've always been used to a certain number, maybe it's shocking.
True. Yeah,
but a lot of money is being spent on this game. It's like a Hollywood movie.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? But if you're looking for a disc, then whistle, mate, because you ain't going to get one.
A lot of people are going to be taking days off work, I suspect, for this launch as well. A lot of sickies. If you run a business, prepare for all the people calling in sick.
Because people are playing a car game.
November 19th.
Adults, yes.
Everyone will mysteriously have the flu.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Sean, thank you. We hit the clock.
Thanks
Sean Keach, Head of Science over there at The Sun. Thank you to him. More from you on the way. 10 to 4. This is Talk.
The battle is really on, though, for number 11. Who's going to be the chancellor? Ed Miliband, don't forget, has played an integral key role in this coup, and it is a coup because no one apart from 25,000 good people of Makerfield have voted for this guy. He is, probably the most left-wing person in the government, and he will spook the markets. He's a big spender. He's very anti-business. His net zero plans have led Britain, into a seriously, tricky waters. There's rumours that that there could be some movement on net zero from Andy Burnham. So putting Ed Miliband in the chancellor job makes that very, very hard.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 0344 499 1000. The other point, I mentioned that Paul in Fife had a couple of points to make. He says, this is about aircon. He says, I have an apartment in Spain. I had aircon. 95% of houses in Spain have aircon. What people forget is in the winter months, it can still get quite cool in some parts of Spain. Well, indeed, you can ski in some parts of Spain as well. But hey, presto, they use their aircon to heat their homes by blowing the hot air. It works perfectly. We are being gaslit about just about everything. There is that real sense. Benson says, Trump is an erratic old man who will soon either die or leave power. We shouldn't care much about him, says Ben in Stockwell. This was referencing his comments on Andy Burnham. I would say, I think, not unreasonably, that yeah, he might be not everybody's cup of tea, and he's a bit unconventional, but it's not about Trump's relationship with the UK, it's about America's relationship with the UK. James is in Sunderland. Are you having a heat wave today, James? Afternoon.
I certainly am. Up here, we're used to walking around this time of year, snow deep, ankle deep in snow. I'm loving all this. I'm sitting here with a very long glass of single malt Islay whiskey.
Nice.
I'm sick and tired of all this panicking about climate change. I really am. Can you imagine? We've got a few days hot weather.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if next winter the Thames froze over? Not only froze over so solidly that people started walking across the river.
That'd be something.
Started setting up little market stalls, having football matches, having winter picnics, having chestnut roasts, having bowls tournaments, farmers setting up farmers. Can you imagine what these greenies would be saying? It'd be the end of the earth. But I can tell you something.
Yeah.
Back in oh God, that whiskey is ever so good.
It's kicking in.
It affects the brains marvellously. 1608.
All right. Yeah.
There was a circus in London, and the enterprising owner got his ringmaster to walk Nellie, their prize African elephant, from the South Bank across to the North Bank.
This
didn't just happen once.
So they walked a flipping elephant across. It was so iced up that it could take the weight of an elephant. Thank God the poor thing survived, whose life I'm sure was pretty rough anyway, but the last thing, drowning in the Thames. He walks me over on ice. Listen, go on, James, very quickly. Oh, he's gone. He was there. James, thank you. Reference the heat wave. It's happening everywhere. Sunderland, it's around about early to mid-20s in Sunderland, down in London, around about 31 degrees at the moment. So it's a bit cooler than yesterday, although I think tomorrow, it gets hot again, or hotter, and then starts to cool down to the mid-20s by the following week, which is called basic summer. Stan, but that's pretty much it from us. But Kevin O'Sullivan is here, the always hot Kevin O'Sullivan.
Yes, I'm certainly hot today, man. Yeah. The London Underground system, folks, if you don't live in the capital, is just astonishing. It's like 38 down there. It's really, really hot, way above the temperature at which you are not allowed to transport animals. The hottest you're allowed to transport animals is 30 degrees centigrade.
Right.
The tube system here, all of them are like at 33, 36, 38. Ridiculous. So, yeah, I'm hot.
Sadiq Khan, you've got a lawsuit coming from Kev.
You certainly have, on a number of levels. Right, well, obviously we're going to look at Andy Burnham, Donald Trump's withering verdict. He just obviously never heard of him, had he? I mean, there is a problem there. A lot of Brits are saying, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Around the world, they're going, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
And we're going to make him the Prime Minister. There's something very strange going on. We'll talk to Philip Kisley about that. We'll also talk about this astonishing bust-up between Kemi Badenoch and Bridget Phillipson and Liz Kendall, the Science Secretary.